Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Raymond Yeung. Here are tonight's top stories. Weeks of finger-pointing over a national anthem blunder end with the reprimand for the Ice Hockey Association. 2 people are arrested on suspicion of a diaper fraud case involving $230,000. And John Lee defends the removal of politically sensitive library books. Hong Kong's Ice Hockey Association has been slapped with a letter of reprimand regarding a national anthem blunder, but escaped further punishment. In a bid to prevent a repeat of the incident, the Sports Federation has updated guidelines for team officials. When Hong Kong thrashed Iran 11-1 at the Ice Hockey World Championship in Bosnia in February, the players were ready to celebrate. But everything changed when a protest song was played instead of the national anthem, landing the team in deep trouble. The Sports Federation accused team officials of negligence and threatened to withdraw funding, but the Ice Hockey Association said it had been made a scapegoat. Weeks of acrimonious finger-pointing ended today when the Federation decided to let the group off with a letter of reprimand. Sports Federation Honorary Secretary General Edgar Yeung denied suggestions that it was meaningless and stressed it was more than a written warning. The association was also given 14 days to submit a report on how to improve corporate governance, although it will escape further sanctions for now. Yeung announced that team officials of all sports must ensure a digital copy of the anthem is passed to the organizer at overseas competitions and obtain a written receipt. If the organizer refuses, then the team's attaché should boycott the award ceremony. President Timothy Fox said the government provides a lot of resources to its 80 or so member associations, and he urged them to strengthen management. A Hong Kong footballer who plies his trade on the mainland says some professional players in the SAR struggle to make a comfortable living. Matt Oh blamed this on the lack of investment in the top-flight Premier League.
The lack of competition, I think, has resulted in a reduction in investment, especially after last year, after such a successful year for Hong Kong football as a whole. Personally, and I think everyone thought, there may be a chance that more investment would be pushed into Hong Kong football in the Premier League, but it seems like that wasn't the case. So, yeah, I think it is tough at one of the lower teams in the Premier League, to make a good salary to live comfortably, but that's the harsh reality of Hong Kong football right now.
Oh's remarks follow the arrests of 11 players and a coach in an ICAC crackdown on match fixing in the lower divisions. He said the incident had cast a shadow on football in Hong Kong, especially after the city qualified for the Asian Cup for the first time in 54 years. Oh won 2 Premier League titles with Kitchee before moving last year to Guangxi Pingguo Haliao, a second-tier side on the mainland. He said footballers there are paid a lot, either in the Super League or the China League, which is one level below. Customs officers have arrested 2 people after receiving over 200 complaints of about $230,000 worth of prepaid diapers. A female manager and a male director of an online store called Baby Clan were arrested on suspicion of accepting payments, but failing to deliver the products and refusing to offer refunds. One complainant paid $18,000 for 300 sets of diaper vouchers. Others who felt they were defrauded were urged to contact customs as soon as possible. The suspects were released on bail, pending further investigation. Chief Executive John Lee says it's the government's responsibility to promote books that highlight the values needed in society. He was responding to a lawmaker's concerns about public libraries pulling out books on sensitive topics. Macy Mock reports.
The government today launched its interactive question and answer session, with the first one focusing on national development.
美國政客因政治目的
Chief Executive John Lee kicked off the event in the Legislative Council chamber by condemning U.S. politicians who attack the national security law. U.S. legislators have called for sanctions against 29 Hong Kong judges assigned to hear national security cases. Lee pledged that the Beijing and the SAR governments will protect the judges so that they can carry out their duties independently and without fear. As part of the new format, Lee was more casual and sat down during the session instead of standing.
主席，我想回答咗行政長官。
He also butted in when lawmakers spoke to make a point. Steri Lee was about to make a comment when Lee stopped her to respond to centrist lawmaker Tik Chi Yoon's concerns over the removal of politically sensitive books from public libraries. The chief executive said books in public libraries were recommended by the government, and those that are deemed to be undesirable will not be selected. Officials have the responsibility to promote books that carry the kind of values that the government wants to foster in society, he said. Tang Fei, who represents the Federation of Education Workers, said he was worried about the ability of teachers to handle national security law classes without proper training.
有一啲專業嘅人士講俾一啲經常
Lee responded by saying the government can arrange lectures for the teachers. Lizzie Mock, HKIBC.
Overseas, China and Ukraine have agreed to work together for the mutual benefit of both countries. This follows talks between Special Envoy Li Hui and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. On the first leg of his peace mission, Li also met Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba in the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv. The Chinese envoy was told that Ukraine will not accept any peace plan in which it will have to surrender part of its territory to Moscow. Russia, Poland, France, and Germany are also on Li's itinerary. Russia has agreed to allow Ukraine to keep exporting grain through the Black Sea.
The confirmation by the Russian Federation to continue its participation in the Black Sea Initiative for another 60 days. I welcome this decision. The continuation is good news for the world. Outstanding issues remain, but representatives of Russia, Ukraine, Turkey, and the United Nations will keep discussing them.
The agreement was first signed in July last year, following fears of global food shortages due to the conflict in Ukraine. More than 30 million tons of grain have left Ukraine under the deal, mostly going to the world's poorest countries. Moscow wants Russian producers to be able to export more food and fertilizer to the rest of the world, but says sanctions are preventing them. Severe floods in northern Italy have killed at least 9 people, with many more missing. Elderly people in many small towns were winched from the rooftops of their submerged homes. More than 14,000 people were evacuated as rescue workers toiled through the night to take stranded residents to safety. More than 50,000 households are without power. Heavy rains triggered landslides, sending piles of debris downstream. In just 36 hours, affected areas received a fifth of their annual rainfall. The floods forced the cancellation of the Emilia-Romagna Formula One Grand Prix this weekend. Relations between China and Australia appear to be improving gradually, with trade in the forefront.
Starting from today, China will resume import of Australian timbers. That is a conclusion done after serious study based on the materials provided by the Australian side about the quarantine of those timbers. That will be, they have to satisfy the conditions of the Chinese customs.
Australia used to earn $400 million a year from timber exports to China, but shipments were suspended 3 years ago when pests were found in the wood. Canberra is now hoping that a proposed visit to Beijing by the Australian Prime Minister will lead to the lifting of bans on other products. Hong Kong's jobless rate has dropped for the 12th month in a row to pre-COVID levels. Unemployment decreased by 0.1% to 3% in the 3 months ending in April. It was the lowest rate in 3.5 years. More than 3.6 million people now have jobs. There was a big demand for workers to decorate, repair and maintain buildings. Unemployment in the transport and warehouse industries also fell sharply. Labour Chief Chris Sun expects the labour market to keep improving. He said a fair in Southorn Stadium in Wan Chai next month will offer several jobs in residential care homes. Now let's take a look at the markets. The Hang Seng Index ended the day up by 166 points. The top 10 active stocks, Tencent lost $3. Alibaba was up $2.30, while the Tracker Fund was up 19 cents. China Mobile was up by $1.25. Baidu was up by $1.80, while BYD was up $4.20. The forex trading against the Hong Kong dollar, the euro's at 8.46, the pound sterling at 9.74, while the Australian dollar at 5.20. And finally, in Europe, the London FTSE is currently up 38 points. One of the world's oldest surviving Hebrew Bibles has been sold for $38 million at an auction in New York.
The Bible is written on parchment. It's handwritten by one scribe on 792 pages. Parchment was a really expensive strata upon which to write things. This book would have required over 100 animal skins in order to be able to have commissioned it. So it's a very luxurious item that only the wealthiest of patrons could afford.
The Codex Sassoon, as the Bible is called, is 1,100 years old. It fetched the highest price for a book sold at auction. The Bible was bought by a former U.S. diplomat on behalf of a Jewish group and will be donated to a museum in Israel. Finally, the weather forecast. It will be hot tomorrow with sunny intervals and isolated thunderstorms. Temperatures will range between 27 and 32 degrees. Overcast and hot as we head into the weekend. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Thursday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Raymond Yeung. Good night.